Of all the bars in all the cities of the world, he chose mine. Okay, it's not really my bar, but I go there often after work. It is called Platonov's Place. This was my sanctuary, and I knew Tony, the bartender, well. I certainly didn't need him around. His name was Eugene Whistler. We went to school together. I've seen him a couple of times since then and said hello a couple of times, but I've never wanted to talk to him, that's for sure. I think he's not a bad person, he's just such a loser. At school, he was always teased and bullied because they knew he would never stand up for himself. One day, when we were freshmen in high school, I saw him being pushed around by 3 seniors. I've always hated bullies, so like an idiot, I intervened. I got into the thick of it and hoped that he would at least support me. Naive, he ran like a frightened rabbit. By the time he returned with the teacher, I was already lying on the ground with a broken nose, a plump lip, and 2 black eyes. Now here he is, sitting in my favorite bar. I thought about turning around and just leaving, but Tony saw me and had already put my beer on the counter, right next to Eugene. Horror. Well, my mother taught me to always be polite. "Hey, Eugene, how are you?" I began politely, sitting down. He turned his head to see who was talking to him. He seemed to be crying. "Chase, hi, I just came in for a beer, that's all. What are you doing here?" Same thing, decided to have a cold one in front of the house. I really didn't want to tell him that I come here often. My next question came out before my brain caught up with my mouth. "You look depressed. Is everything okay?" He didn't answer right away, just continued to stare into his glass of beer. I hoped he didn't hear me, but that wasn't the case. My wife is cheating on me, and I don't know what to do about it," he sobbed. "Well, divorce comes to mind real quick, buddy. Are you sure or just suspicious?" "Oh no, no doubt about it. She's with him right now. They kicked me out of the house so they could be alone." I almost choked on my beer. "You're kidding." "Really?" I said with a slight laugh. I looked at him, expecting him to make a joke, but he just continued to look into his glass. "They kicked you out of your house." "Your house?" Ashamed, he nodded. "Yes, same old Eugene. He clearly hasn't learned anything since then. Damn, he's just so annoying. I wondered how anyone could let this happen. This guy needs help, I told myself, but not from me. I wasn't going to get involved this time. Not this time. So, here you are, crying in your beer while your wife and some lover had sex in your house. In your bed, Eugene." "What can I do?" he interrupted, knowing what I was going to say. I just shook my head in disbelief. He not only learned nothing, he became worse. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want to go there and kick them both out of the house, but you know I'm not a fighter, Chase. Hell, my wife will laugh at me while he beats me up, and besides, I work for Lisa's dad. One word from her, and I will be fired. Then I will have neither a wife nor a job." "Yes, but you will have something much more valuable," I told him. He looked at me with a questioning expression on his face. "What?" "Self-respect," I said. I was so annoyed by this wimp that I could hardly contain my anger. "Do you know what this is? It's when you walk with your head up. It's when you feel good. Do you feel good now?" He shook his head. "Not really." "Well, what's more important, keeping a wife who doesn't love or respect you, a job that you can't keep without trampling on your own dignity, or the ability to walk down the street with your head held high and look people in the eye?" I was sure that my little inspirational speech would make him get up and go home, but he just sat there. "Yes, that's easy for you to say. People have always looked up to you. You've never been afraid of anyone, and I'm not like you, Chase. I'm not as brave as you. I admit it. I'm a coward. I've been that way all my life. Hell, I've never fought because I've always run away. I don't think there's a big chance I'll suddenly become brave at this point in my life." By then, my blood pressure had almost reached boiling point. What a whiner. I stood up, took a 20 out of my wallet, and threw it on the bar counter. "For both of us," I shouted to Tony. He simply nodded and continued his conversation with some pretty blonde at the other end of the bar. "Come on," I almost screamed, grabbing the idiot by the collar and yanking him out of the bar stool. Wait, wait, Koo, where are we going? I almost got him out the door. To your house. You and I are going to kick their asses, I growled. Oh, Chase, I, I don't think. Shut up, Eugene. Just get in the car and show me where you live. He was so scared along the way that I was afraid he was going to pee on my leather seats. When we got to his house, he reluctantly led me inside. Where is the bedroom? I asked. Oh, up the stairs, down the hall to the left, but... Come on, I growled, grabbing him by the shirt and dragging him along with me. As we reached the second floor, I looked down the hallway. They didn't even bother to close the door. Still holding Eugene by the shirt, I burst into the bedroom. They were so engrossed that they didn't notice us until we got close. Eugene's wife started screaming as I grabbed her lover's hair and pulled him out of her and out of bed. He surprised me a little when he turned around and tried to throw a right punch at my head. The problem was that I was holding him tight, and he couldn't turn around enough to hit me, so his punch landed on my shoulder. I wasn't going to give him a second chance. With Eugene's wife screaming, I twisted him and delivered a strong blow to his solar plexus. This quickly drained him of his strength. Taking advantage, I turned him around and slammed him face first into the wall, then gave him a hard punch to the kidney. After that, he just fell to the floor. I noticed his pants next to the bed, so I walked over and grabbed his wallet. I took out his ID and left it with me. I also noticed his phone sticking half out of his pocket. Eugene, Eugene, screamed the half-hysterical wife. Who is this man? Get him out of my house now. Eugene just stood there in a daze. Eugene. Shut up, or I'll throw you over my knee and kick your ass, I shouted back. This shut her up at least for a while. I scrolled through this idiot's phone and found his wife's number. Hello, dear. A pleasant surprise. Mrs. Cutter, it will be a surprise, but I'm afraid it won't be a very pleasant one. Who? Who is this? Why do you have my husband's phone number? Is he okay? Did something happen? I looked at the idiot, who was barely moving. Well, to answer your questions, I am a friend of the man whose wife your husband slept with. I have his phone number because I took it from his pants pocket, which is lying on the floor of my friend's bedroom. He is fine for now, but you better keep him on a short leash, because if I catch him near my friend's wife again, I'll send him to you in pieces. I hung up before she could respond. I found the camera function on my phone and took a photo of Eugene's wife before she could hide her head under the sheet. Took another photo of her lover, who was just beginning to come to his senses, and then sent both photos to Mrs. Cutter. The idiot looked up and saw me with his phone. I think he just realized who I was talking to. What? What did you do? I just sent pictures of you two to your wife, I replied. No, you can't. Please, I have children. It's too late, it's already done. You should have thought about them before you threatened and kicked a man out of his own home to have sex with his wife, I blurted out. Here, I said, tossing him the pants. Get dressed and get out of Eugene's house. He looked at Lisa, who was still hiding under the sheet. I think he assumed she was still in charge. Now, I shouted, and if Eugene sees you around his wife again, I won't be so nice next time. While he quickly got dressed, I took out my phone and took a photo of his driver's license, then returned it to his wallet and tossed it back. Here you go, Mr. Arnold Cutter from 320 Landon Drive. Remember what I said about coming here again. He wasted no time in leaving the scene. I looked at Eugene, who was still standing next to the bed, as if he had seen a ghost. Okay, Eugene, the rest is up to you. What am I? Of course, I can't do everything for you. You married her, now figure it out for yourself, I said. That's all, cried the witch. I'm calling the police. And what do you tell them? That your husband came home with a friend and found you in bed with another man. Go ahead, maybe the local newspaper will print that in their police report. I see the headline, Grocery Store Owner's Daughter Found in Love Nest. Yes, I recognized her as soon as I saw her. Lisa Schultz, at least that's her maiden name. She was a year younger than us at school. I found it hard to believe that she was married to Eugene. Her father owned 2 grocery stores in the area, and she always walked around as if she had been hailed as Queen Lisa. "Okay," she replied angrily. "Can you at least leave the room so I can get dressed? Eugene, you'll go with him." I looked at her wuss of a husband and saw his shoulders begin to sag. I think he was so used to taking orders that he didn't even realize it. "Eugene, this is your house, your bedroom, and your wife. I'm going downstairs, but if I were you, I would stop taking orders and start giving them." With these words, I turned and went downstairs. I heard her yelling at him, so I decided to grab a beer from the fridge and wait to see who would come out on top. Of course, there was no doubt, but I would still stay in case he needed a ride to the hospital. I had no doubt that she could beat him. I sat at the kitchen table and listened. I mostly heard Lisa, but every now and then I heard Eugene raise his voice. It was interesting how many times during the entire marriage he did this. I almost finished my beer when it got quieter upstairs. I expected her to come downstairs, dragging his body with her, but when she appeared downstairs alone, I was surprised. She looked around until she spotted me and walked towards me. If looks could kill, no defibrillators would have saved me. I guessed that Eugene was probably already dead on the floor upstairs, and now she was coming for me. I hope I can handle it. "What did you say to him?" she growled. "A little. He just said that if he wants to walk with his head held high." "Huh, that'll be the day," she interrupted. "I told him that if he wants to walk around with his head held high, he needs to leave his cheating wife," I replied sarcastically. "Well, thanks to you, he's upstairs packing. I hope you're happy." I looked at her with what I hoped was a smug expression. "Yeah, I'm pretty pleased." "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I guarantee you, he won't be gone long. I'll give him 3 days tops. Then he'll crawl back on his knees, and when that happens, I'll make his life hell on earth. And he will thank you for it." I just kept a confident grin on my face, but inside I started to have doubts. She probably knows him better than I do. Suddenly, I wasn't so confident in myself. Around this time, Eugene came down with a suitcase. I saw him through the doorway, but Lisa had her back to him. "Ready to go?" I called. Lisa turned around. "Eugene Whistler, if you walk out of this door, don't expect to come back." For a second, I thought he was going to give up, but then he answered me. "I'm ready, Chase. Let's go." I stood up and left the kitchen, heading towards the front door. We were almost on the street when we heard her last message. "I'm serious, Eugene. Don't come back." I looked at him. He was scared to death. It was visible on his face. "Now what?" he asked. Remembering Lisa's words that he would come crawling back, I realized that I had probably just ruined this poor guy's life. No matter how badly she treated him, I had no doubt that she could make his life even worse. Suddenly, I was no longer confident in my actions. We returned to Platinov Mesto, and I dropped him off at his car. Or I guess we both had to decide that he would stay the night at the motel. I told him to meet me at 7 in the evening the next day. The first beer is at my expense. That night, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I kept wondering if I had done the right thing and scolding myself for getting involved in this. Never again, I vowed. The next day, I went to Platinovo around 6, as usual. Tony opened a bottle of Miller and placed it in front of me on the bar. "How's your friend since last night?" He seemed a little down. I just took a sip from the bottle. "Problems with my wife," I replied. I wasn't going to go into detail. If Eugene wants everyone to know about his affairs, let him tell it himself. I did, however, want to ask Tony for advice. "Have you ever gotten involved in other people's family problems, Tony?" He looked at me like I was a fool. "I'm a bartender, that's my job," he answered with a laugh. "No, I mean it, seriously. Yesterday, I was one of the people who contributed to him leaving his wife. She treated him badly, so at that moment I thought I was doing him a favor, but now I'm not sure." "Why do you doubt?" I thought for a second. "I don't know. Probably because, what right did I have? She's not my wife, thank God," I joked. I think it's her confidence. She's so sure he'll come back to her on her knees. If he does, she promises to make his life even more miserable than it already was. I probably shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. Who knows, maybe he's on his knees in front of her now, asking for forgiveness. Well, I can tell you with certainty that he's not on his knees, at least not right now. Oh, I chuckled, how can you be so sure? The bartender's intuition. Besides, he just walked in, he said with a smile. I turned around, and sure enough, he was there ahead of time, and he was smiling. Hey, Chase. Hi, Tony. Beer's on me, he said, still smiling. Okay, I give up. Why are you so happy? Chase, I feel liberated. I really do. Do you think you could teach me how to fight? Fight? What prompted this? Who do you want to fight? Not with anyone. At least not right now. I just want to learn how to defend myself, just in case, you know? Yesterday it should have been me throwing that guy out of my house, not you. It should have been me. Next time. I didn't like the sound of it. Next time? Are you thinking about going back to Lisa? He looked at me, and for the first time since I knew him, instead of fear, I saw anger in his eyes. You're kidding me after the way she treated me. No way, never, he said flatly. I felt relieved. Maybe there's more to Eugene than I thought. Maybe he just needed a push. He continued, no, I'm just tired of giving in all the time. I took my stand today, and it was nice. I want to keep doing it. Took your stand. What did you do? Tell her she was wrong. Lisa, no, I didn't even talk to her. No, I stood up to her father for the first time. He was so shocked that he forgot to fire me, he joked. Is it true? Even better, actually. He's not going to fire me. He came into the store on State Street this afternoon. I work there. When he called me into his office, I thought that was the end. Anyway, at first he said that he talked to Lisa, and she told him that I left her. He said that she was very angry, and if I knew what was best for me, I should go home right after work. I felt like a little boy being told off, and was about to say, yes, sir, but instead I thought, what would Chase say? He turned his head and looked straight at me with a big smile. Chase, I said, I'm sorry, sir, but that won't happen. She cheated on me all the time, and I won't put up with it anymore. He was so confused that he almost swallowed his cigar. Chase, I can't tell you how nice it was for the first time in my life to stand up to someone. And not to someone, but to my father-in-law. Incredible. This made me chuckle. I never thought of myself as intimidating. Well done, I said. Yeah, and then when I asked him if I was fired, he said no. He said he never interferes in the personal lives of his employees. Chase, I think he even respects me. Before I left his office, he looked at me, smiled, and nodded his head as if he approved. Well, great, Eugene. See how nice it is to earn a little respect. Yes, that's right. Now how about you teach me how to fight? Eugene, I don't think I'm the one you want to teach you. Hell, I probably lost more fights than he won. There are many places that teach this. There are martial arts schools, self-defense courses, even gyms where you can learn to box. If you want to learn how to fight, you should go to a professional. Yes, maybe you're right, he said. We talked for about an hour before he called Tony to pay for the beer and left. Do you still think you did something wrong? Tony asked. You heard him right? I caught some parts of the conversation. He's over the moon. Yeah, who knows? Maybe he really will turn out to be a normal guy. I looked at my watch. God, I have to go. I have a date with Mel today. Ah, Mel short for Maloney, the love of my life. Well, in a figurative sense, of course. We've been dating for the past 6 months, which, by the way, has been the longest-term relationship I've ever had. She wasn't the most beautiful girl in town, but she had a small, petite body that drove me crazy. She also had a great sense of humor, something I felt was lacking in many women. Besides all this, she was smart, and I really liked her. I liked her too, but to be honest, the word love never really fit into my dating vocabulary. I'm not sure if I'm capable of this or if I just haven't met the right girl yet, but until now I've never honestly told any girl that I love her. Mel was the closest to it. Who knows, maybe over time. I said goodbye to Tony and hurried home. Took a quick shower, changed clothes, and knocked on Mel's door with 2 minutes to spare. We were going to go out to dinner and then to a movie, then finish at either her or my house. When the door opened, my jaw almost hit the floor. She was dressed in red. This in itself was not surprising. Red suited her, she always looked good in it. But that was the outfit she wore. Before me stood a vision in scarlet. The red satin corset hugged her every curve tightly. The red satin corset clung tightly to her every curve, emphasizing her hourglass figure and lifting those oh so loving curves that stuck out from the top of the corset. At the bottom of the corset were 4 garters attached to red, smooth, silk stockings. A pair of red 4-inch heels completed the look. You know how they say it's impossible to think when blood flows from a big head to a small one? Yeah. I don't know how long I stood there with my mouth open, but I vaguely remember following her inside and feeling her delicate fingers undo the buttons of my shirt, then the belt buckle. "Ooh, look here," she purred, pulling my pants down and freeing my stony focus of her attention. "Why, Chase, I think you're glad to see me." At this point, I mustered all my sophistication and responded, "Yeah." "Come on," Mel said, leading me towards the bedroom. "Let's finish this in comfort." I tried to fall to the side, but Mel pulled me to her chest. I felt our hearts beating in unison. After a short time, I felt Mel's hands begin to wander south. "Oh, it didn't take long," she whispered, and that was just the beginning of a very wonderful weekend. I didn't see Eugene until the end of the next week. Tony warned me as he followed me in. "Hey, Chase." A whole week had passed since he left that fury, and he was still smiling. "What's up, Eugene? Still living alone, or did she drag you in again?" I half expected him to say that they had made up, but he surprised me again. "I told you, Chase, I'm never coming back. I filed for divorce 3 days ago. I think they gave her notice today. She's been calling my cell phone every 5 minutes since 11 in the morning. Thought she'd come to the store and make a scene, but that did not happen." "Really? You're really serious, aren't you? You're really going to get a divorce?" "Yes, it might take a while. My lawyer said she could drag it out for a year if she wanted. Hopefully she'll just be glad to get rid of me and sign the papers." "How did you even get along with her? She always walked around like a little Miss Arrogance. No offense, Eugene, but you're not what you'd call a good match." I honestly don't know," he said after thinking for a few seconds. "I worked at the store during the summer and after school my senior year. She would often come in and see me. She was nice at first, probably the only girl who was kind to me. Now, looking back, she was probably just looking for someone who can be commanded, and I came up." "Yeah," I muttered under my breath. "So when did she start bringing guys home, or has she always done this?" "No, last week was only the second time she did this. I think she was always cheating on me. She definitely never let me touch her. She kept saying she was going out with the girls, and then came back at 1 or 2 in the morning with smeared lipstick, disheveled hair. Half the time her blouse was unbuttoned. If I said anything, she would go on such a tirade that it just wasn't worth it. I knew she wouldn't stop, no matter what I said." I just shook my head. "How long have you been married?" "A year after graduation." He looked at me and shrugged. "Like I said, she was the only girl who was kind to me. I didn't even propose to her. One day, when we were at the mall, she dragged me into a jewelry store and pointed at my engagement ring, saying she wanted it," he said with a grin. "Okay, what's next?" I asked. "It looks like you're serious about divorce. What will you do after that? Are you still going to work for her old man?" "Yeah, I thought about it. I don't know. Lisa can come into the store and bother me whenever she wants. I I don't know what to do if I leave. I started out as a loader. Mr. Schultz made me a manager when I married Lisa, but I'm still just a warehouse manager. Who would hire someone my age who has been a loader all his life? He was right. Well, maybe you should go into business for yourself? Do you have a hobby or something? Maybe something that can be monetized? He didn't answer. At first, I thought he was trying to think of something he could do, but when he looked around to see who could hear him, I realized he had an idea, but was embarrassed to talk about it. I can't tell you, he said with a sigh. You'll think I'm a coward. You'll think I'm a wimp. Damn, I already thought he was a wuss. I couldn't think of anything that would make him even more of a wuss than I already thought. What? Come on, Eugene, what? Are you collecting lingerie or something? He couldn't look me in the eye. He lowered his head and quickly looked around again to make sure no one was listening. I make dollhouses, he muttered. It took all my self-control not to burst out laughing, but I knew he could see the laughter in my eyes. Yes, I know, he said. I told you you'd think I'm a wuss. But they're really nice, detailed. I made one for the girl next door, and she loves it. I wondered for a second how I ended up sitting next to a guy who was kicked out by his own wife so she could sleep with another man, and who also makes dollhouses. Why did I get involved in this? Why? Which reminds me, do you know anyone who can rent a truck? I snuck into the house after Lisa left and got the rest of the clothes, but I still have a ton of tools and stuff in the garage that need to be picked up. That's really what it's all about. I need a truck. I would rent one, but the lawyer took almost all my money as a fee. They want about $300 even for a small truck, and I don't have it. I sat and wondered if I really wanted to get more involved. Oh well, I told myself. My dad has a pickup truck, but he would never let a stranger drive it. I think I could go myself, but I want to do it when your wife isn't there. Yeah, me too, he muttered. Thanks, Chase, that would be great. How about next Tuesday around 7:30? Lisa will be at her parents'. At least that's what she says every Tuesday. I've never checked, but I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't have more hidden away. One boy. I couldn't help but shake my head. Yes, I said, trying not to sound disgusted. I'll ask, but I'm sure everything will be fine. Mel came to my place over the weekend with an overnight bag and didn't leave until Sunday afternoon. Needless to say, I didn't think about Eugene at all. In fact, I only remembered on Tuesday morning that I should have asked my father about the truck. I stopped by my parents after work, took a pickup truck, and headed to Platinovo to meet Eugene. We drove past his house first to see if anyone was home. There was only one light on, but Eugene said his wife always leaves the light on in the kitchen when she goes out. He pulled out the garage door remote and damn, it still worked. I assumed she was still waiting for him to return on his knees. As the gate rose, my headlights illuminated the empty space where Lisa's car usually parked, but it wasn't until the overhead lights turned on that I was pleasantly surprised. Eugene had a cool work area with woodworking equipment. It was small but impeccably organized. I turned off the engine and got out of the car to take a closer look. The instruments were light, but of high quality. Damn, Eugene, you have a great workshop here. Thank you, I like making things, he replied. Then my eyes began to wander to the shelves above my head. Maybe because of my preconceived ideas about him. When he told me about making dollhouses, I never imagined what I saw. These weren't dolls' houses. These were miniature houses precise down to the smallest detail. The work would be at the level of the most skilled carpenter or furniture maker. Damn, Eugene, did you really do this with your own hands? Yes, I told you I make dollhouses. Dude, you need to come up with a better name for this than dollhouses. This is incredible, I exclaimed. Thanks, Chase. Lisa always told people that I play with dollhouses. It's nice to see that someone other than me appreciates them. We loaded up his tools, then grabbed a couple of thick blankets to wrap around the dollhouses without damaging them. We drove to the rented storage facility and unloaded, then returned to Platinovo, where Eugene's car was parked. I thought about it. Let's go in for a minute and have one, I suggested. The evening is still young. He agreed, and we headed inside where Tony was already waiting with two cold ones. I know someone who could help you, I told Eugene. My girlfriend, Mel. She has a bachelor's degree in marketing. She could help you develop a marketing plan for these dollhouses. Really? Do you really think I can make money from this? I don't know. They're really beautiful. I don't see any reason why not. How long does it take to make one? Oh, a couple of days, sometimes 3 if it's very difficult, he replied. Okay, don't quit your day job just yet, I warned him. I'll talk to Mel over the weekend and see what she says. We finished our beer and went home. Eugene was still living in a motel, but he was talking about finding a small studio apartment. I had to give him credit. He's held firm so far. Mel called me on Thursday. Sometimes she met with friends on Friday evenings. The next one was just such an evening. I was disappointed because our weekend usually started on Friday night, but it gave me time to come up with a surprise. Last weekend, she showed up at my place with a suitcase and spent the entire weekend with me. A week before, she met me at her place in red lingerie. I had to come up with something for her. Since I wasn't going to see Mel until the next day, I stopped by Platanovo on my way home from work on Friday. Hey, Tony, do you know anyone who has a killer eggs Benedict recipe? This was Mel's favorite breakfast dish, but she was very particular about how they were prepared, so she rarely ordered them. Yes, he answered, I am. Really? I'd like to make them for my girlfriend tomorrow morning, but she's really picky about making them. Absolutely. When they're cooked right, they're delicious, but if you get them wrong, they'll be flat and tasteless. First, you want real Canadian bacon, not ham. The eggs should be cooked so that the yolks are still runny and mixed with the hollandaise sauce, which should be thick and piquant. At the end, the whole thing is garnished with a black olive. I was impressed. Damn, Tony, that's just the way she likes them. You can write the recipe, I'll pay you. You don't have to pay. Call it karma. You help your friend, so I help you. What is it called? Paying it forward. The next morning, I was parked outside Mel's apartment. I checked the grocery bags one more time to make sure I had all the ingredients, and then wondered if I should ring the doorbell yet. I knew she probably wanted to get some sleep after a night out with her friends, but I didn't want to wait too long so she wouldn't have time to eat breakfast. I waited until 8:30 before ringing her doorbell. A minute later, I saw the peephole on the door darken for a second. She hid behind the door when she opened it. When I entered, she closed the door behind me, showing me her favorite girl in only panties. She yawned, covering her mouth with her hand, and her eyes were half open. God, what a sexy look. I put the bags on the floor, walked up, and kissed her. She wrapped her arms around my neck and gave me a sleepy smile. What's taking so long? She purred. I smiled. She truly was wonderful. Do you want to eat before or after? She covered her mouth with her hand, yawning again, and her eyes opened slightly wider. Before, she tried to pronounce the words clearly. I need to wake up. Okay, then jump in the shower to perk yourself up. I'll start making breakfast. Okay, she yawned again. What are you cooking? It's a surprise, I said, picking up the bags and heading to the kitchen. I followed Tony's recipe and was almost finished when Mel came downstairs looking a little more cheerful than before. What time did you get home? I asked as I plated the best eggs Benedict you've ever seen. Oh, this looks delicious, dear. I didn't know you were such a foodie. I hope you like it, I said, sitting down with my plate. For a second, I thought she was going to ignore my question, but after the first delicious bite of my culinary masterpiece, she answered. I'm back after 2. Honey, this is fantastic. Thanks. Is everything okay? You don't usually come this late after a night out with the girls. No, I'm fine, but not Nancy. She found out her husband was cheating on her, and she's completely devastated. We all stayed longer than usual, trying to cheer her up a little. I feel so sorry for her. Her world has fallen apart. Is Nancy the tall blonde who has the office behind yours? Yes, she suddenly looked at me. Don't you dare make any plans, my dear. I won't give up whoever makes eggs Benedict like that. I smiled. I knew she was joking, but it was still nice to hear. I just wasn't sure who you were talking about. We continued talking about her friend while we ate. Her cheating husband reminded me of Eugene, which reminded me of dollhouses. Honey, sorry for changing the subject, but if I don't ask, I'll forget. What do you want to ask? I have a friend who makes wooden dollhouses by hand. They are very intricate and detailed. He wants to try to make money from it, so I told him I'll ask you about marketing, just to see if you have any ideas. Do I know this friend? No. We went to school together, but we recently met again. He is now getting a divorce, as is Nancy. His wife cheated on him for a long time. He finally broke down. Mel slowly shook her head at my words. What is it with these cheating spouses everywhere? I don't know, honey. Why get married if you're going to cheat? I don't understand that either. She looked at me and smiled. You know, for someone with a reputation as a ladies' man, you have very old-fashioned ideas. That's one of the things I like about you. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just smiled slightly and shrugged. She continued to smile. So he makes wooden dollhouses by hand. How long does it take to make one? He said 2 or 3 days. Well, that way he won't be able to make money selling wholesale, not if it takes that long. He'll have to sell retail. As soon as she said that, she stopped and thought for a second. In fact, maybe he can market them as unique pieces to a niche client. Perhaps through a broker. He'll get a lot more for them that way. But I have to see them. I won't talk to brokers until I see what I'm talking about. It's no problem, I told her. He's moved out of the house, but he has some in storage on Dempster. Mel looked at me with a sly expression on her face. Of course, if I help your friend, I expect you to pay me for my services. As a reward, I expect more time with you making out. Now it's my turn to smile. I've never been happier to pay off a debt. Okay, then you can start now, she said. Are you staying the night? Yes, I have clean clothes in the car. That's my man, she commented with a grin. Why don't you call your friend and see if we can meet at his storage room tomorrow? I want to see these dollhouses. And then come to the bedroom. You'll recognize me easily. I'll be the one lying on the bed naked. With these words and a malicious smile, she went into the kitchen and headed to the bedroom. I quickly pulled out my phone and called Eugene. We agreed to meet the next day at 2 o'clock. With this task completed, I rushed to heaven, ready to begin fulfilling my obligations to Mel. I took off my clothes in the living room before getting to the bedroom. When I walked in, I acted like I was looking for someone. Let's see now, I said out loud. She said she'd be naked. Oh, I think I found her. Mel laughed. Stop clowning and come here, she said with a big smile. I couldn't help but smile to myself. We were so compatible sexually. For the rest of the night, she greeted my euphoric moans with her cries of delight. Eugene waited impatiently in his car when we pulled up. I introduced him to Mel before he opened the vault. Mel took a look, and, as I expected, her reaction was the same as mine when I saw them for the first time. Oh my God. Eugene, did you make these yourself? They're absolutely gorgeous. Thank you. I've been making things since I was a kid. I started making dollhouses about 5 years ago, but it was just a hobby. Chase was the one who suggested we try to sell them. Okay? I understand everything, Mel said, examining the second model. How many of these can you make in the next 2 or 3 weeks? But they have to be of the same quality, without any shortcuts. Oh well, I have a problem now. These vaults don't have electricity. I need a place to work with electricity. How big a place do you need? Well, it doesn't have to be big. This place would be the right size if there was electricity. I saw Mel's mind begin to race as she looked around the room. Okay, the complex where I live has garages that are about the same size. I rent one for my car, and they have electricity. I think my car can sit outside for a while, at least until you find another place to work. Eugene was almost overwhelmed with gratitude. He never stopped thanking her. I got the impression that few people in his life treated him so well. I guess that means I'll have to ask Dad to borrow his truck again, I interjected. You, you. The timid Eugene began to appear again. Do you mind, Chase? No, not at all. If Mel believes in you enough to leave her Lexus on the street, then I believe in you too. I, I, I saw tears begin to fill his eyes as he tried to speak. I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you both enough. No one has ever been so kind to me, he finally said. We agreed to move his tools to Mel's garage, and then we all went out to lunch together. We talked about dollhouses for a while, then Mel changed the subject. Eugene, Chase said you're in the process of getting a divorce. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there any chance you and your wife can reconcile? No, none, he replied. You know what they say, Eugene, if you fall off a horse, you need to get back on right away. I started to wonder where Mel was going with this. Is there someone special waiting for you? She asked. He looked embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. No, I've never been very good with women. They don't like me much. I'm probably too shy or something, he muttered. Nonsense, said Mel. You're an attractive guy. You just need to go out in public. Give someone a chance to get to know you a little better. Hey, I have an idea. I knew it. I knew Mel was on to something. There's this girl at work I think you should meet, she continued. Not Nancy, I said, interrupting her little speech. No, not Nancy. In fact, her husband came back asking for a second chance. I think she's making a mistake, but she lets him come back and they go to couples therapy. No, Bev, Mr. Jensen's secretary. She's sweet, smart, sociable, and free. I looked at Eugene. He looked scared again, but Mel was relentless. How about it, Eugene? Maybe we can have a double date, she suggested before I could stop her. I didn't mind helping the guy, but I didn't really want him hanging around with us and Mel. Unfortunately, I could not do anything. The invitation had already sounded. I saw Eugene's eyes light up. Yeah, a double date with you and Chase? Well, do you really think she'd be interested in me? Mel continued to pull us deeper. I don't know, but there's only one way to find out. What do you say? I can find out if she's free, and if so, we can plan something for this Friday. Not surprisingly, he jumped at the offer, reminding myself again to never interfere in other people's affairs. Since I couldn't come over on Friday night due to our double date, I stopped by to chat with Tony on Thursday after work. As soon as I sat down, he handed me a beer with a question. Do you have a new girlfriend? He took me by surprise. New girlfriend? Girlfriend? No, why do you think so? He leaned his elbow on the bar as he spoke. Some girl has been coming here every night this week looking for you. What does she look like? Oh, about 5'6", dyed blonde, maybe 10 or 15 pounds overweight, but not bad. Sounds like Lisa, Eugene's wife. Is she looking for me? Tony simply nodded. Great. Next time she comes over, tell her you didn't see me and heard that I was hanging out at some other bar, but you don't know which one. Maybe you should tell her yourself. She just came in and is standing right behind you, he said with a slight chuckle. Hi, Lisa, I said without turning to face her. She sat down on the bar stool next to me. Hey, Chase. It took me a little while, but I finally figured out who you are. I kind of remember you from school. How did you know where to find me? She ordered white wine before answering. You're pretty famous around town. I was just asking people. Okay, you found me. What do you need, Lisa? I want to know what gave you the right to stick your nose into other people's affairs. We were happily married before you showed up. I had to laugh. You may have been happily married, but your husband certainly wasn't. Let me ask you something. What gave you the right to treat him like dirt on your soul? He's my husband. I can treat him any way I want, she blurted out. Maybe, but he also has the right to leave at any time, I replied. This seemed to throw her off a bit. Look, I didn't come here to argue with you, Chase. I want you to tell Eugene that all is forgiven so he can go home. I know I talked about making his life miserable, but I'm not mad anymore. I promised to treat him better. As if I would believe it. Lisa, you know that he still works in your father's store. Go yourself and tell him. I can't. My dad won't allow me to go into the store to talk to him. He's afraid I'll make a scene. I think he's a little mad at me. Listen, Lisa, according to Eugene, he has no interest in crawling back to you, as you so kindly put it. You ruined everything. Accept it and move on. Okay, I ruined everything, but he listens to you. I just want you to tell him that I deserve another chance. I promise I'll treat him better. No other men. Sorry, Lisa, I'm afraid I don't believe you, and I doubt Eugene will either. What do you care about anyway? You're daddy's only little girl. You'll always have money. I'm sure there are plenty of guys who would sell theirs. Masculinity for the taste of the sweet life. She sighed and dropped her shoulders. I miss him. I miss having him around me. We should have thought about this before kicking him out. She looked at me with anger in her eyes. He wouldn't have left if it weren't for you. You could have at least said something nice about me. You're wrong, Lisa. All I did was give him a kick in the ass. He would have left you anyway. Eugene is finally starting to find himself. Leave him alone. Go ruin someone else's life. I saw the anger in her eyes intensify. It's not over yet, she growled. She finished the remaining wine in one gulp and left. Tony came over immediately. Wow, you really told her, my friend. You heard? Oh yeah, I didn't miss a word. Is she really that much of a bitch? Worse, I replied. She was on her best behavior just now, I joked. I stayed, sipped a couple of beers, and talked to Tony until 10, then went home. I always like to go to bed early on Thursday nights, so I have enough energy for the weekend. The next night, we all met at my place. It was a more central location than Mel's. She brought Bev with her. Eugene appeared a couple of minutes later. Being the de facto host, I made everyone a drink so we could sit down and get acquainted before heading into the restaurant. I had seen Bev in Mel's office a couple of times, but didn't know her at all. She seemed a little shy. I could see why Mel thought they would make a good couple. During the conversation, Bev asked Eugene about his dollhouses. Apparently, Mel told her a little about them. At first, he was reluctant to talk about them, probably thinking that she would consider him like everyone else. But Mel knew how to draw people out. Once she got him talking, we almost couldn't stop him. Dinner went smoothly. Both Eugene and Bev seemed to be coming out of their shy shells, and Mel nudged me a couple of times when she saw the way they looked at each other. After that, we went dancing. Eugene was not light on his feet, but Bev simply laughed at his clumsiness. The whole evening went well, so well that we repeated it the following month. Despite Lisa's ridiculous attempts at reconciliation, Eugene continued with the divorce. He's really done with his ex. There was no doubt about it. For the first time since I knew him, I began to notice changes. He was becoming a little more confident. He still worked at Lisa's dad's store during the day, but he spent his evenings in Mel's garage building his dollhouses, except for Wednesdays when he took self-defense classes. I stopped by Plato's on Monday night after work. Tony nearly fainted. Is the sky falling or something? He asked. I never saw you here on Monday. Hi, Tony, I said with a tight smile. No, I'm just a little annoyed. I need a beer and an ear. Beer and ear, I like it, he chuckled. If I ever raise enough money to have my own bar, I'll call it beer and ear, thank you. You're welcome, I muttered. So what's got you so upset? Mel, I just spent the weekend with her, and all she did was talk about Eugene and how talented he is. He makes these wooden dollhouses, and she's going to help him sell them. I love this guy, and I'm glad she's helping him, but damn. At that moment, my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw that it was Mel. Well, I said to Tony, he's probably calling to apologize. I pressed the button. Hi, beauty. Hey, Chase. Listen, I wanted to call before you make plans for next weekend. I need to get out of town. We're leaving Friday night after work and won't be back until Monday night. We? Who are we? I asked. Eugene and I. We're going to New York to see Jason. He's the guy I told you about when you first asked me to help. The broker. Eugene has built up a pretty good inventory. We're taking 4 different styles of cabins to show him. We have no way to pack them safely for the flight, so we have to travel there and back by car. I didn't know anything about marketing, but I couldn't understand why they had to travel so far to find someone to sell these things. Okay, what could I say? I knew she was good at her job, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. Plus, I was the one who suggested getting Mel involved from the start. Okay, maybe we can meet sometime this week? Perhaps, but we'll have to make do with the situation. I'm still in talks with Jason, depending on his agreement to work with Eugene, and we still need to get settled in New York while we're there. There's a lot to do, so I can't promise. I was really starting to regret getting Mel involved. How about I call you on Wednesday after work? It'll do, honey, but remember, I don't promise anything. Yes, I understand, I replied. Apparently Mel didn't hear the note of anger in my voice, or if she did, she didn't say anything. We said goodbye and hung up. Tony stood just a few feet away, washing glasses. Bad news? Yeah, sort of. Mel has to go to New York for the weekend. That's sad. Hey, I know a bubbly blonde who's looking for company if you need company. I chuckled. We never talked about it directly, but Mel and I had an understanding almost from the beginning. I haven't dated anyone else since we started dating, and I know she's been faithful to me too. No thanks, Tony. I appreciate your concern. I think I can get through one day off. But tell you what, I know I've said it before, but this time I really mean it. If you ever see me interfering in other people's affairs again, promise me you'll throw me out of the bar. He looked up, as if considering my words. This could be fun. Okay, I promise, he said easily. Wednesday turned out to be a really lousy day at work. Plus, Mel wasn't answering her phone, so when I got home, I was in a very bad mood. Until I walked up to my apartment and found Mel leaning on the doorframe. She picked up the white bag. I brought Chinese food, she said with a smile. God, she was like a beacon on a foggy night. I hugged her and kissed her in a duel of tongues. Mel sensed my arousal and pressed closer. Without letting her go, I fumbled for the keys and opened the door. I closed the door with my foot as we burst inside. Mel dropped the bag on the floor, and we started tearing each other's clothes. With desire, Mel wrapped her legs around my waist as I pressed her against the wall. I unbuttoned her blouse and lifted her bra to gain access to her firm breasts. Without considering the neighbors, our sex sessions were heard throughout the building as Mel's back met the wall with every thrust. Despite still trying to calm down, it was too funny not to laugh. We both cleaned ourselves up enough to walk to the kitchen table and eat, then headed to the bedroom for a few more rounds of carnal pleasure. I hoped she would stay, but she said she had to go. I told her to drive carefully, and she drove off. On Friday night, I went to Pluto's just before 9:30. With nothing else to do, I stayed late at work to catch up. I knew that Mel and Eugene had already been driving for several hours, and was disappointed that she had not called to say goodbye before leaving. Around 11, when I was about to go home, my phone rang. I wondered who could be calling so late. I should have known. Hello, beautiful. Are you already there? Hey, honey. No, we don't get into New York until about 6 in the morning. I started driving, but Eugene took over about an hour ago so I could rest. We just passed Youngstown, Ohio. I'm going to try to take a nap, but before that I wanted to call for phone sex. I heard her laugh. You should have seen how Eugene blushed when I said that, she giggled again. Don't worry, Eugene, I'm only joking, she told him. Damn it, I said into the phone. Tell him to close his ears if he doesn't want to hear. No, wait, he's driving. That's not a good idea, I joked in response. I just wanted to call. The weekend is going to be very busy, so I don't think I'll be able to talk until next week. Okay, honey, I wish you and Eugene the best of luck. Drive carefully and call when you can. We ended the conversation with a couple of phone kisses. Tony heard my side of the conversation. You should marry this girl, Chase. She seems like the one. Tony, if I was inclined towards marriage, I would have proposed months ago. I guess I'm just one of those guys that all the women talk about. I'm afraid of commitment. I threw money at the bar and headed home. It was the first Friday night in months that I went to bed before midnight. For sleep, I mean. I didn't hear from her again until the following Monday evening. Hi, handsome. Hello, the beauty herself. How did it go? Well, Jason is cautious, but he always is when he negotiates his commission structure. I saw that he really liked the models. He said he would let us know by the end of the week. That's great, honey. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you. Thank you, honey. I wanted to call and say that we're back, but I'm tired from the long journey. I'm going to go to bed. I have to be at work tomorrow. I could hear in her voice that she was exhausted. Okay, honey, I'm glad you called. I would have been worried if you hadn't. We said goodbye and hung up. It was still too early for me to go to bed, so I grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and sat down to rest in my chair. For some reason, I couldn't get Tony's words out of my head. You should marry this girl. I couldn't believe I was even thinking about it. I've seen too many of my friends locked in bad marriages. I have a friend, Jack, who married the love of his life right out of high school. 3 years later, he found out that she was cheating on him. He went looking for the bastard she slept with and found him in a bar on the other side of town. He attacked the guy, but unfortunately for Jack, he not only kicked his ass, but several of the guy's friends got involved too. Jack spent 3 weeks in the hospital. To top it all off, his wife received more than half in the divorce. Today, if you mention his ex-wife's name, you better duck down. He hates her with such passion and still says that he will take revenge someday. No, there are too many what-ifs to risk the marriage. I would consider asking her to move in with me, really. With this thought, I finished my beer and went to bed. On Thursday, since I hadn't heard from Mel, I decided to call and see if she had plans for the weekend. Chase, I was just about to call you. She squealed into the phone, sounding more like a little girl than a grown woman. Guess what? I don't know, but it must be something good, I joked. Oh, this is not just good, this is fantastic. Jason not only agreed to represent Eugene, but he has already sold 2 of his houses. This is not great. I'll admit it was good news, especially after driving all the way to see the guy, but I had a hard time matching Mel's enthusiasm. That's great, honey. You should both be proud of yourselves. You both did a great job, I said, trying to sound more excited than I actually was. I was wondering if you had anything special you wanted to do this weekend. Maybe we could celebrate your success in some way. Everything is already planned, she said. We'll all meet at Plato's at 7. From there, Eugene will take us all to dinner, and then we'll go dancing. Oh, Chase, wear something nice. Doesn't have to be a suit, but maybe wear a jacket, okay? Blazer, I was surprised. Yeah, he said he was taking us somewhere nice for dinner. Okay, I'll put on my jacket. I felt a little annoyed again. I was really hoping for a relaxing weekend of sex, and more sex with Mel. He sighed quietly. I think I can tolerate Eugene for a few hours. I walked into Plato's on Friday night right on time. They're already waiting for you, Tony said, nodding his head towards one of the booths. I looked over and saw Eugene waving at me. He was sitting with Bev. Mel sat with her back to me. This also annoyed me a little. I have always had a kind of rule. I don't like to sit with my back to the door. Oh well, I told myself, I think I can handle this for a while. As I walked to the booth, a thought occurred to me. I seem to be telling myself this a lot lately. Hey, beautiful, I said to Mel as I slid next to her. I hugged her and kissed her. She purred with a smile as our lips parted. Under the table, I felt her hand deftly move to my groin, and her smile grew even wider. I missed you, she said. Prove it, I replied. Later, she promised. Eugene has been dying to tell me. Chase, has Melanie told you the good news yet? Yes, I told you. Congratulations. Thank you. I owe it all to you and Melanie." It was strange to hear someone call Mel by her full name. Almost no one did this. I looked at her. "Melanie?" "Yes," she answered. On the way to New York, he asked what chalk is short for. I liked the name Melanie, so I asked if she minded if I called her that, Eugene added. "I said I wouldn't mind if he didn't mind if I called him Gene," Mel said. I thought it was funny. "Okay, so we'll use your full name and shorten it," I said with a grin. At that moment, I noticed Eugene glancing towards the bar. This was the second or third time I noticed this. "Is there something wrong?" I asked. "No," he answered, not very convincingly. Bev noticed it too. "Do you know them?" she asked. I turned my head to see who she was talking about. There was a guy and a girl sitting at the bar. The guy seemed vaguely familiar, but he blocked the view of the girl. "Did he study with us?" "Yes," Jin answered. "He was a year older than us. He walked in with Lisa as soon as you sat down." "Lisa." "Yes, you probably can't see her, but she's sitting on the other side of him." I saw the guy looking at us and chuckling. I saw that it was indeed Lisa as she leaned forward and looked in our direction, laughing. They were clearly making Eugene the source of their amusement. "You want Tony to kick them out?" I asked. "No, I don't care who she's sleeping with now. Although, to be honest, I thought she had better taste than him." Tony was pretty busy, so he wasn't paying attention when they stood up and walked towards us. I started to get up, but Eugene said he could handle it himself. I sat wary as they approached our booth in case they needed to intervene. They both stood next to Eugene and loomed over him. Eugene looked up and greeted, "Hi, Pete, Lisa." "Well, if it's not Eugene," Pete drawled, drawing out the name probably the same way he did at school. Some people just never grow up. Lisa looked at Bev. "Who is this, some bitch you picked up?" Before anyone could say anything, Bev quickly responded. "No, Lisa, I already stole your husband. I don't want to take away your clients either." To say Lisa's expression was comical was an understatement, but the comment gave Pete the opportunity he was looking for to confront Eugene. "Eugene, your bitch owes my girlfriend an apology." He leaned down and grabbed Eugene by the shirt, or she'll say that she. Like lightning, Eugene grabbed his arm and twisted it back, forcing Pete to fall to his knees. Before he realized what had happened, Eugene was already standing over him, adding enough pressure that Pete screamed something about a broken arm. Lisa was more surprised than I was. She screamed at Eugene and was about to attack him when Tony suddenly appeared and grabbed her. "What's going on here?" Tony shouted. I explained the situation to him. "That idiot came with Eugene's ex-wife to stir up trouble. Looks like Eugene handled it himself, Tony." Eugene let go of Pete's hand so Tony could lead them out. "Both of you go. I'll only say this politely once. I want you out of here and for me to never see you here again," Tony said in his official menacing voice. I watched as Tony led them out. When they reached the bar, Lisa looked back at us. There were tears in her eyes. At that moment, I realized that, in some twisted way, she actually cared about Eugene. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. After they were kicked out, Tony came back and offered us a free drink each. I can't describe how impressed I was. I knew Eugene was practicing self-defense, but he thanked Tony for the free beer and apologized to everyone. We sat and talked while drinking our free round, but it was time to go. Eugene Jin didn't say where we would go for dinner, just follow him. A few minutes later, we arrived at Chez Paul, probably the most sophisticated and expensive restaurant within a 50-mile radius. "Now you're glad I told you to bring your jacket," Mel said as I looked at her as the valet opened the door for her. I came out from my side, took my jacket from the rack in the back seat, put it on, and led my girlfriend into the restaurant, following our host and his girlfriend. Jin smiled from ear to ear as he gave his name to the head waiter. We were shown to our table and Jean received a wine list. He handed it to me, saying that he didn't know much about wines and asked me to choose a good one. I felt a little uneasy about the prices. I thought I'd have to get my credit card out before the end of the evening. When we finished, everyone agreed that Chez Paul lived up to its reputation. The bill arrived in a small black leather folder, which our waiter discreetly placed in front of our host. I was a little nervous for Eugene. With a bottle of wine and dessert, I roughly estimated that the bill would be around $350. I thought about how to offer to help him pay, but before I could figure out how to call him aside, he pulled 4 fresh $100 bills from his wallet, put them in a folder, and handed them back to the waiter, saying that he didn't need change. Okay, again, I was impressed. From there, we went to Spigot, a more upscale dance club. The people who went there usually knew how to dance. I could take care of myself, but again, I was worried about Jean. Sometime after we were seated at the table and ordered drinks, I asked Mel to dance. As we headed towards the dance floor, I heard Jean ask Bev to dance. As we danced, I noticed Mel looking at them with a small smile. I looked over and saw Jean gliding across the dance floor with Bev in his arms. This was my third surprise of the night. Mel noticed the expression on my face. I gave him some dance lessons, she told me. He seemed to be a good student, I replied. The night went on, and we spent less time on the dance floor and more time at the table talking. Jean began telling us about his plans to quit his job and rent a space where he could build dollhouses full-time. I was happy for him, but it sounded like he was acting too hastily and could quickly find himself in financial trouble. I decided to try to bring him back to earth. Jean, I'm happy for you, but maybe you should reconsider quitting your job, at least for a while. What if this guy doesn't sell anymore? I was surprised that Mel, usually a pretty sensible girl, supported his plans. Jason already has orders, she informed me. Okay? Anyway, you said you could only do 3 a week, right? And according to Mel, this guy takes a pretty good share of the pie. Jin looked serious and looked at Mel. I didn't tell him everything, she said. He has no idea. Jin looked at me again. Jason isn't your average wholesaler. He is a broker who sells things to some of the richest people in the world. The 2 dollhouses he sold went to some sheikh in the Middle East who owns a bunch of oil wells. The guy bought them for his 2 daughters. He paid $20,000 each. I was just taking a sip from the bottle. When I heard $20,000 each, I coughed, spilling the beer through my nose in a humiliating stream of snot and hops. Mel started patting me on the back as I grabbed a napkin. Are you okay? She asked with a slight chuckle in her voice. I was still coughing and couldn't respond except to nod my head. It was so awkward. I knew everyone was looking at me, so I excused myself and went to the toilet. 20,000 each, I kept repeating to myself as I blew my nose and cleaned myself up. It looks like the waitress came and cleared the table while I was in the restroom. I apologized when I returned to my seat. Sorry, Chase. I should have said it more tactfully. I knew you had no idea how much I was paid, he said. No, it's okay, I assured him. I think congratulations are really in order. He already has orders for 4 more, but I need to make custom containers for each one so they can be shipped overseas safely. I'm working on them now. Jason receives the orders, and I send them straight to the client. I get paid via bank transfer. Translation before sending. All this was agreed upon by Melanie. She is truly something special, he said, looking at her gratefully. I knew my girlfriend was good at her job, but I never thought she was this good. We talked some more, but since we hadn't had sex in over a week, I knew Mel must be just as horny as I was, so we all parted ways and headed home. I assumed Jean and Bev would be doing the same thing Mel and I were doing before the night was over. Good for him, I thought. On a scale of 1 to 10, sex with Mel was always a 9.5, but that night it was off the scale. Whether it was the thrill of a job well done or simply abstaining from sex, I didn't care. She was insatiable. We've done this in every position known to man and come up with a few of our own. Dawn was already approaching when we ran out of gas. Mel loves post-coital cuddles, and I can't say I don't enjoy it especially with her. As we lay there hugging each other, Eugene's revelation came back into my head. 20,000, I muttered, barely above a whisper. I heard Mel giggle and felt her nod as she leaned against my chest. Yes, 20,000. Jason gets 50% of it. Wow, really? 50% just for mediation. He's more than just a middleman, Chase. He and a few others are legends in my business. They're the James Bond of marketing, self-employed scoundrels who work with an exclusively select clientele. I met him a couple of years ago at a conference downtown. We became friends, and I spent the night with him. Suddenly, my whole body tensed. Mel felt it and looked at me. I think my face showed concern because she immediately knew what I was thinking. No, I didn't sleep with him in New York, she said. I stayed with him for 2 nights at a conference, but that was over 2 years ago before I met you, and I haven't seen him since until last week. And it was purely for business. Knowing that she had just relieved my anxiety, she continued. Anyway, usually Jason works for a buyer. Some Maharaja somewhere decides he wants a new yacht or private jet, so he calls Jason, gives all the specs and says what he wants, and Jason starts looking for an exact match. He earned up to $1 million on one deal. Damn it, if he makes so much money on big deals, why is he messing around with 10,000 dollhouses? Because big deals don't happen every day. The people he works with must always have the best that money can buy, and they're willing to pay big money for it, whatever it is. When the rumors about dollhouses sell out, he'll just sit there and take orders. He'll sell hundreds, maybe thousands, before his customers move on to something else. Jesus, Jean will be provided for life? And you? Will you get anything out of all this? Well, I wasn't going to take anything. I was doing it as a favor to you, but Jean insists that you and I both get a small share in the company. He wants to give me 10 shares. He's going to give you 2. Don't tell him what I said, however. He wants to tell you himself. Shares? Does he already have a company with shares? Yeah, well, we needed to find a way to make sure his ex couldn't claim anything until the divorce was final. We told Jason, and he showed us how to do it. We formed a corporation and registered it in Delaware. It's one of the states with the most lenient corporate regulations in the country. Then the corporation issued 200 shares. Now they are all in my name, but after the divorce is final, I will transfer all the shares to him, except for 10, which he wants me to keep. Wow, you've really been busy, haven't you? Yeah, that's why I couldn't call you. We didn't have a moment to ourselves the entire time we were there. Well, it's nice of Gene to offer me shares, but I won't take his money. Tell him to add my shares to yours. You're the one who worked for it, not me. You'll have to negotiate with Jin, honey. He was pretty insistent that you get something for all your help. As it turns out, Gene caught me at Plato's a few nights later. He proposed and gave me a hard time when I refused. After some negotiations, we agreed on a plan he would buy beer from then on. He didn't like it too much, but I could live with it. Gene called Tony over and told him that all my beers would be on him from now on, and then he ordered another one for both of us. After the first sip, he began the second topic of conversation. Would you believe it? Lisa came to the motel to apologize for that evening. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. She already looked like she regretted what happened when Tony kicked them out that night. What did she say? Well, it looks like she had a serious talk with her father. Somehow he had to find out about what happened. She said he was furious. She said he told her off pretty bad. He said he was disappointed in her. It hurts. He's everything to her. I think he finally made her realize how she treats people, how she treated me. He sighed. Chase, she was crying. Real tears. I'd never seen her cry before. She was literally begging for another chance. Are you going to do this? I asked him. No, it's too late. Too much water has passed under the bridge. I don't believe anyone can change so quickly and completely. I'll always wait for old Lisa to come back. Every time she goes somewhere, I'll think that she's dating some guy. He took another sip and continued. No, but who knows, maybe she will respect her next husband. Over the next few months, everything went as usual. Lisa is a thing of the past. The divorce was finalized, and she had no claims against Jean's new business. For him, money flowed like a river, which meant Mel was making a lot of money. As for me, I had a good job, I drove a new car, and lived in a nice apartment. That was enough for me. I was proud of what I had because I worked for it. Everything I needed or wanted I could get myself. The free beer was nice, of course. Then Mel called. She sounded concerned and said we needed to talk, but didn't explain what. I agreed to meet her after work at Plato's. I arrived a couple of minutes before her and ordered 2 beers, which were already in front of me when she entered. I moved over so she could sit next to me, but she chose to sit opposite me. "Hi," she said with a nervous smile as she picked up her Miller's Light. "Hi, honey," I replied, debating whether I should smile or not. I started to get nervous. Something was definitely wrong. Mel couldn't look me in the eye. She fidgeted with her napkin nervously as she began to speak. "Chase, there's no easy way." I was so focused on figuring out what was going on that I didn't even notice Jin came in until he was standing right next to us. Mel and I looked at him at the same time. Mel spoke immediately. "What are you doing here?" I said I could handle it myself, she said with some irritation in her voice. "Did you really think I'd let you meet him alone?" he answered. Mel moved over and Jin sat down next to her. It didn't seem right to me. Mel should be sitting next to me, not him. It didn't take a genius to figure out what would happen next. I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. "Are you two cheating on me behind my back?" I growled. "No, no, Chase, we would never do that," Jin quickly intervened, trying to defend their honor. "But we talked, Chase," Mel added. We want to try to build a relationship together." My eyes turned to her. "Chase, you're a great guy, you really are. But let's face it, you're not really into a serious relationship. We've been dating for over a year now, and we've had a lot of great times, but as a couple, we're not any closer than we were when we started. I need more. I want a husband, Chase. I want a man who will be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want a house with a white fence." I sat and heard her words, but my growing anger did not allow them to penetrate. I looked at Eugene again. "What about Bev? I thought you had something with her. Are you just going to leave her?" "Chase, she's dating 2 other guys besides me. She has no real feelings for me. When I told her we couldn't date anymore, she just said, okay, and that was that." I sat there, still not believing my ears or my eyes. "Chase, I know what you're thinking, and you're wrong. Jean and I didn't sleep together. We didn't even kiss until last night, but we worked together, and the more time we spent with each other, the more we realized that we have a lot in common. We both want the same things in life. Chase, I still want you and me to be friends, just without the intimate part." "Me too, Chase," Jean added readily. "I really hope this doesn't affect our friendship." I've never been the kind of guy who could calmly think through all the nuances of a situation before doing something. I've always been a reactionary type and usually follow what my stomach tells me at the moment. And at that moment, I saw only the friend I helped and my girlfriend stabbing me in the back. It was a betrayal, and it hurts. "I hope you two will be very happy together," I cursed bitterly as I stood up. I pulled out a 10 and threw it on the table. "I'll pay for my damn beer," I said with as much bile as possible. "Don't call me your friend anymore. Don't call me, don't come over. I never want to see either of you again. And Jean, if you ever try to contact me or approach me, no matter how much you think you're awesome, I swear to God I'll ship you next Tuesday." "Chase, wait please," Mel cried as I walked away. I heard Tony calling my name, asking what happened, but I didn't answer him. I needed to get out of there. I can't believe my eyes filled with tears as I drove home. I've never cried over a woman before. "Stop crying, you big coward. She's just another woman," I told myself. Arriving home, I rushed to grab a cold beer from the refrigerator. I hardly drank what I left at the bar. I can't believe how much pain I was in. I took a couple sips of beer while my thoughts swirled in an endless whirlpool of chaos. Should I fight for her? I wondered. Should I go back and tell her I love her? Did I love her? I knew I loved sex with her, but was it the same? It must be, otherwise why would I be in so much pain? But if I loved her, could I really do this? Could I give her everything she wants? Now that was the $64 question, and honestly, I couldn't answer it. Finally, after 2 more bottles of beer and an endless stream of unanswerable questions, I fell asleep in the chair. The next day I had to go to work, but that Friday, after work, I did something I hadn't done in years. I put my tent and my trusty fishing rod in the trunk of the car and drove to the campsite. I think I'm weird in that way. They say misfortune loves company. You'd think I'd go straight to Plato's and drown my sorrows in beer, but that wasn't me. When I felt bad, I liked to be alone. I found a quiet spot along the Vermilion River where I set up camp and caught dinner. It was too hot to sleep in a tent, so I set up a hammock later that night. There's nothing like nature to clear your mind. I lay down with my hands behind my head and looked at the night sky. It was strewn with twinkling stars. An army of crickets performed love serenades, and the babbling water of Vermilion added the tranquility that only night can provide. And then I found the answer. Did I love Mel? I had to be honest with myself. No, at least not in the way she needed it. If I loved, I wouldn't be there. I would be right next to her, fighting with all my might to hold her. No, she was right. It still felt like a betrayal. Maybe because I was the one who brought them together in the first place, I don't know. There is nothing better than the loss of a girl to make a person think about his inner world. Maybe I mellowed out because the thought of actually marrying someone no longer sent shivers down my spine. Mel was the closest I've ever come to falling in love. This told me that perhaps there was someone there, someone I will fight to keep for the rest of my life. It was almost 2 months before I walked into Plato's again. I don't know why it took so long. I guess I just didn't want to go back to the crime scene. Tony looked shocked when I walked in. God, you're still alive. I've already given up hope, he said, putting down my usual drink. No, I'm still here, I just wasn't feeling very social, I guess. Yeah, I get it. I'd be mad too. If it's any consolation, Mel cried all night after you left. I knew Tony was trying to support me, but it didn't help. No, it's not. She was right, Tony. Mel wants a fulfilling family life, and she knew I would never give it to her. We were so damn good in bed together, and it's hard to let go. I saw Tony grin. I knew you would come to your senses, he said. She's come here a couple of times since then. Yes? Are they still together? As far as I know. She asked me if I thought you'd ever forgive her. What did you say to her? That it was a blow, that I'm sure you felt betrayed, especially by Eugene. But I also told her that in time, when the pain subsided, you would look at it from a rational point of view, that you would understand that they didn't do this to offend you. Then I told her what she already knew, that you are a man of honor, and I am sure that you will not only forgive them, but one day they will be able to call you friend again. I have to admit, you made me worry when you stopped coming. I started to doubt my judgment. You're a smart guy, Tony. I just needed time to be alone. I wasn't ready to share my sadness with anyone, not even you. So if I see Mel again, can I tell her that you forgave her? I know it means a lot to her. I thought for a few seconds before answering. For a moment, I considered letting it hang a little longer. Then I reproached myself for having such a thought. Yes, tell me. He chuckled again. You're a good person, Chase. I think he thought the Mel and Eugene topic was over because he leaned his elbows on the bar in front of me and rested his chin on his hands. Now, he said, since I haven't seen you for a long time, who are you sleeping with now? I laughed at his bluntness. Not with anyone, Tony, not with anyone. I really need to get back on track. My self-imposed exile ends tonight, I stated, slamming my fist on the bar for emphasis. By the end of the next week, I had a date with Charlene, a cute girl I met at the grocery store. Unfortunately, she wasn't to my taste. She wanted to talk all the time, even during sex. After Charlene, there was Sandy, then Michelle and Eva, and then Carol. Carol was insatiable. She came to me 3 or 4 times a week to squeeze every drop of love out of me, and then leave me for dead. Ah, but what death! It's been 7 months since the night Mel and Eugene made their announcement. I was sitting on my usual bar stool, listening to Tony talk about opening his own bar one day, when he looked behind me and went silent. I turned around. His shoulders no longer sagged. He stood straight and carried himself not with arrogance, but with confidence. He sat down next to me. "The beer's on me, Tony." I forgave Mel, but with Eugene everything was not so simple. I said nothing as I sat there deciding what to do. "I saw your car in the parking lot when I drove by," he said. "Well done," I replied, looking straight ahead. "Mel said you forgave her. I guess that doesn't apply to me, huh?" I didn't say anything. I love her, Chase, and she loves me. I was still silent. "I'm sorry, Chase. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry it was Mel. I wish it was someone else because I know you care about her, but would you marry her? You were ready to spend your whole life with her, give her children and a home. I guess we'll never know, huh?" I blurted out. Yes, I acted like a jerk. I did not care. Oh, I have no doubt that someday I will wish them a happy life. But for now, I need to get it out of my system. I heard him sigh. "When Mel said you were in a forgiving mood, I prayed that it would apply to me too. You were the only true friend I've ever had. We're getting married next May," he said, taking something out of his wallet. "My number is on the card," he said, throwing the card on the bar. "I know you'll think I'm being cocky, but I hope you'll be my best man." This surprised me. I looked into his face and saw that tears were flowing from his eyes. "I hope between now and then you'll forgive me, Chase." With these words, he headed towards the exit, wiping away his tears. Tony didn't say anything. He just walked up looking at me. "I guess you think I should do this?" I asked. "Hey, it's not my decision," he said. "You know, I almost wish they'd slept with each other behind my back. Then I'd have the right to hold a grudge. But they didn't. They were honest and came to me before doing anything." "Uh-huh," Tony confirmed. I picked up the card. "I'll think about it, okay?" Tony smiled as if he knew something I didn't already know. "I'll tell you one thing, however. I know I've said it a million times, but I've never been more sincere than I am now. I will never again interfere in other people's affairs." Before I could finish the thought, we both heard a woman's voice loudly asking someone, "Let go." I looked in the direction of the noise and saw a woman trying to free herself from a man who was tightly holding her wrist. She shook her hand, trying to escape, but to no avail. "Hey!" I shouted, rushing in their direction. "Let her go." I was impressed by the photos. I don't look that bad in a tuxedo. Yes, you guessed it. I agreed to be Gene's best man. He was, of course, nervous at the reception when I stood up to make a speech. You're probably wondering what happened that night at Plato's. Well, despite my sincere promise to never interfere again, I couldn't just stand there and watch some scoundrel insult a woman. Her name was Rita, and it turned out that this guy was her abusive partner. She had enough of it and told him he had to move out. That's when he grabbed her wrist and told her he was going to take her home to beat her. He was brave when it came to beating up women, but Tony and I were a different matter. We both walked him out the door. Once he reached the safety of his car, he turned around and promised revenge on Rita. When we returned inside, the poor woman was shaking and crying with fear. Tony brought her some water, and I tried to calm her down. She was sure he was heading back to her apartment to destroy whatever he could find. He also had a key, which did not add to her sense of security. I called the police and tried to explain the situation, but they started asking a bunch of questions. Was his name on the lease? Did he physically harm her? Did she have bruises? Did she report previous incidents of violence? Finally, I said, forget it, and made another call. Gene met us at the door of Rita's apartment. As soon as we walked in, we heard this bastard smashing something in the bedroom. Rita stayed in the living room while Gene and I went to see what was going on. We found him tearing her clothes with a knife. As we approached, he turned around with a knife at us, but before I could react, Gene did a sort of Steven Seagal impersonation, flipping the guy over his shoulder and nearly breaking his wrist, disarming him. I remember thinking, I need to find out about those classes he's taking. Rita grabbed a couple of plastic garbage bags, which we filled with the creep's clothes, while Gene took the apartment key off his ring. We both threw him out with a warning to never come back. Although everything seemed to be over, the stress was more than the beautiful red-haired girl could bear. She burst into tears and admitted that she was still afraid of his return. She didn't have the money for a motel, so of course, being the good Samaritan I am, I offered her my guest room until things were sorted out. That was almost a year ago, and she's still there. It might be worth clarifying. By still there, I don't mean she's still in the guest room. After the first couple of months, we decided that she should move her clothes into my bedroom. For the first time in my life, no matter what day of the week, I fell asleep and woke up the next morning with a woman hugging me. A woman I care about. A woman I'm falling in love with. Yes, that very L word. I can't believe it myself, but there is no doubt that she is the one. In fact, I'll be a little late getting home today. I had to stop at the jeweler and pick up the engagement ring I put aside 3 months ago. I have everything planned. On Saturday evening, after dinner at our favorite restaurant, we will go for a walk along the lake. Under the light of the full moon, I will get down on one knee and ask for her hand in marriage. I have no doubt that she will agree. In fact, Gene had already agreed to be my best man, and I heard through the grapevine from an ex-girlfriend that he was going to give Rita and me 5 shares of his company as a wedding gift. This time I won't refuse. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.